Hey everybody, it's Chris from Rottweiler Performance, and today before I went home, I thought I'd show you guys what it's like at Rottweiler Performance to prep a race bike, a 790 adventure race bike for the Sonora Rally, and kind of what that takes, and the kind of equipment that we have to prep a bike like this for a race like this. So I've prepped plenty of bikes for Baja 1000s. Things like that. That's my background. Prepped cars for a long time, class 1 and class 10, some trophy trucks, and did the Pikes Peak cars for Rod Millen and some other things. So my background is high-end race car prep. So the motorcycle stuff just kind of comes naturally and is a little bit more manageable for me as far as space-wise goes, and a little bit more fun. But right here is basically our prep area right now for the race team for the Sonora Rally. It's coming up here in about 2 or 3 weeks. So that is the race bike right here. And typically what we do is we take these things down to the center, to the heart of the bike. So we've made a custom kind of fixture right here to hold the bike with some little pockets in it to hold it down. And that's made things really easy, or much easier, I should say, to take the bike and strip it down. And then we have this kind of halo up here to hold on to the handlebars, because the handlebars are always an issue. So we kind of whip that out real quick, but we're gonna probably make a little bit nicer one a little bit later on that kind of isn't so obtrusive or around the sides of the bike, probably come from the front. But that is the race bike, and all the parts for that race bike are back over there and over there. And the way this works, and we'll walk over here to start, is basically the bike gets torn down. It gets washed first, and then it gets torn down to pieces. And then we bring them all over here and we wash the pieces individually, bit by bit. So we have these tables here. We fill some soap and water in them, and then we put the rubber mat down, and that way the dirt and debris kind of falls below the rubber mat, and it's also not hard on the parts, on the painted parts like the swing arm and things like that. We let Wes be hard on that stuff in the racing, but washing it, it's actually kind of a cool system. So we just kind of put everything in this bath and clean it up, and then we use this little kind of handy thing right here to dry it off, which is just an electric hair dryer. This thing cranks pretty good, so we dry the parts off with that, and then so the bike is cleaned, and then the parts are cleaned over here, and then they're brought over here past the tire machine, and they're lined up on this bench here. And basically these parts are fairly clean, but they're not detailed. So this is all the stuff that kind of needs detailing. And so what it does is it travels down here, and now we've got our kind of detail area set up here. And right now we're going through the front Brembo caliper. So we have a single side out system on this. So we'll go through, and we use these paint brushes with a little bit of either Armor All or some cleaner, and go through and kind of clean everything up and inspect everything. And it really gets all the little bits and grit out and just gets these things brand new. And that system also really helps with electrical stuff. So we have our grease here, our Maxima grease, anti-seize, Loctite red and blue. We've got some black silicone, dielectric grease for the electrical components, and some Armor All, and all of our tools. So about once an hour or once every 2 hours, we'll take all the tools and then we will put them back into the toolbox. We call it, we just do kind of a quick survey and a cleanup, and everything goes back into the toolbox, and we kind of reset and start over. We call it a reset, or else they start getting strewn about the shop a bit. But in some of these drawers right here, we've got a lot of electrical bits and pieces in case we have to do an electrical work. Right above this drawer are some of the electrical tools that we use for crimping and things like that. Some wires and some little bits that we use in case we need to. And then over here in these drawers, we've got various bits of hardware that we've pulled off the bike. So some of these drawers we reserve just for the hardware that comes off the bike. Here's just some extra stainless button heads, some other random things that we use. And I believe, yeah, this one is like a lot of KTM bits and pieces. This is our Rando Drawer. We've got clamps, exhaust clamps, and hoses, and BRP rubber mounts, and bolts of different sizes that are pull-offs, and all these different things. So this comes in handy in case we need, some, whatever we need, KTM specific stuff. And then we use these for storage in here, so we can actually take tires and put tires away to where they're not taking up space. That rack over there is pretty much filled up, and it's a lot easier to keep the tires from the specific bikes on here. So these are the pull-off tires for our brand new bike. We're going to sell those. And then over here, this is a lot of the hardware off the race bike. So everything's kind of labeled as to what it is, so we have an idea of what we're looking at. But most of the time, you look at bolts, this is all the exhaust stuff, and this is all the battery stuff, and this is the radiator stuff and things like that. So I'm sure you guys recognize a lot of these parts, but they go in here, and then they might get cleaned up and put away. But as parts get detailed in that area, they get moved down, and all the clean stuff that's ready to get bolted on the bike is down here. So again, using that paintbrush, we went through, and you can detail all the electrical bits really nicely with paintbrushes and a little bit of Armor All, and everything comes out. It's really tough to get all the dust out from underneath all this stuff. So the paintbrushes do a great job at a lot of that, and they get in all the little bits and nooks and crannies of everything, and you can get everything just absolutely spotless and brand new with that technique. We went through and we stripped the airbox down to nothing. Now we've got our airbox coming, but for now we got to use the stock one. We've got some pre-filters coming out for this part and some other things, but for now we go through and we actually ran a cleaner brush throughout this entire thing, because this engine pukes a lot of oil inside there, which we don't mind so much, because it actually traps some of the lighter dust that gets past the paper filters. So this is the swing arm, completely prepped. So we put a brand new BRP chain guide on there. We've anti-seized this bolt here, and it's prepped and ready for a new chain. We've Loctited all these bolts. Every single bolt on this thing is Loctited and gone through. We've greased the pivots here. And that's another advantage to really kind of starting from the center of these bikes and handling every single part by hand. Because you're basically pulling it apart, you're washing everything. During the washing portion of it, you're kind of inspecting everything. And then when you get over here, you're inspecting it even more, you're looking really close, and then you can literally go over this bike from the center out, and it's a lot easier to install the exhaust without all that stuff in your way. So you kind of start from the center out. That every single bolt is Loctited. So we've gone through and, pulled every bolt out, re-Loctited everything, torqued everything. We've got our torque wrench right here. That's our inch-pound torque wrench. So that's, for the finite stuff. But every single nut and bolt is inspected. All the grease is pulled out of here. We get new grease in there. All the electrical connections get dielectric grease, which is this stuff right here. And that's in case you go over in water crossings, you're not gonna have an issue with shorts or anything getting inside your electrical connections. But that's a great way to inspect everything, knowing that every single bolt has been touched. As a matter of fact, one thing we don't have out right now is our thread repair kit. So sometimes threads get gunked up with a little bit of red Loctite. So this is a kit right here where you kind of run over the bolts and it just cleans them up and takes all the schmeg off them. So that is usually on the counter, but we're not to that point yet. And then we've got a lot of our spares over here. So the spares, we got a spares list that starts getting lined up. So all the parts, we've got one moose tube. We've got 5 more of these things coming because we're going to be blowing through them. Probably a brand new one every day. But we're going to bring all the spares. We got aero exhaust, handlebars, decap muffler, grips, DynoJet products, Recluse clutches. We also have a couple stock clutches that are brand new. These things are notorious for smoking clutches, but we think we've got that figured out, especially with the Recluse torque drive clutch kit. That has been working really well. This is our second race bike. This is actually my personal bike right here, which is identical to the race bike. And this is going to serve as spares, so we're going to bring that along, and it's going to serve as a spare a sacrificial spare bike in case anything is needed, although we'll probably, hopefully have enough spares where we won't have to rob parts off this. But if we need an engine, hopefully not, it's there. But we don't foresee anything like that. This engine's been running pretty well. And this also helps to have this bike right next to this one, because when you're putting things together and you've got a little bit of hardware and you're wondering, which hardware goes where, it's kind of cool to have a bike right next to you that has all the same stuff. So you can kind of check the hardware and look at it and say, okay, that's the right bolt, in case you get a little confused. Right here is our tracking software. So everybody is on this. This is a Trello card that we use, and it says Sonora Rally right there. And so we've got race bike, entry, hotels, emergency contacts, spares, pit supplies, prep checklist, needs replacing, tires and wheels. So, we get in here and we're going through and, I'm not going to show you what we're using just in case somebody sees that and they're racing against us. So that's, we're going to hide that. But this is how we keep track of everything. All the members of the team throughout the country and even outside of the country have access to this board. It's on the cloud and anybody can make a change and it's instant. Right here is all the nav equipment that we need to get on this bike. So it looks like a bit of a mess. It's not too bad once you get it all done, but this is the stuff that goes on the handlebars to control the ICO meters here for the rally navigation. Here's our roll chart holder and the controller box. And it looks like a mess. Just pull that out of the bag, but all of this stuff is basically going to get mounted right up in this area right here. So what we're going to do is replace this inner piece. We're going to fabricate our own piece that fits in there that we can adjust for Wes, and it's going to have everything attached to the back of it. So that piece, the nice part about that is really just going to be a drop-in piece, so we can go back and forth between civilian stuff, which is GPS and DynoJet stuff, to rally equipment, where we can just take a couple bolts out, pop that piece out, pop the rally equipment in, and literally just plug one thing in, and Bob's your uncle. It's all done. The only thing we'll have to do is move this over to on the side of this tower somewhere. So we'll make a Delrin mount or some kind of mount that comes off the side of that, or aluminum, where it could clamp on, and he can still have the controls up here if he needs them. And then the thumb switch, the selector buttons and all the actuators and things like that for the roll chart will be replaced, because there's not that much real estate on the handlebars. So that is the nav equipment right there. Anyway, I hope this has been kind of insightful to you guys a little bit. This is kind of how we prep the race bikes, and we've designed a beautiful little facility here that is really efficient for putting these things together and get everything done properly. That's why we built the building the way we did, and everything's paying off right now. So keep an eye on us. We're going to be running the Sonora Rally here in the next few weeks, and we'll be doing hopefully a lot of social media. We don't know what kind of phone coverage we're going to have down there for live stuff like we did at Best in the Desert, but we're going to do our best, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do really well with this guy right here. So we'll keep you guys updated as things go along on the build on this bike. See you guys.